Oh, yeah, yeah. Lovely.
How's it going?
Yeah, how are you?
Going.
Well.
Right. Oh, God. I hate picking someone. It's just hopeless. It's hopeless. All right, it's 7.
Anyway.
Don't,
I was wondering.
don't. It's never quite right. It's never,
That's but
it's
I'm gonna
the,
talk about agenda.
all right. I've got
Really.
7:20.
Their meeting
We start early, we end.
is Thursday. That's where all.
We're missing Lilia and,
Extras for the
and, Rick. Okey doke. All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order, please. The meeting of the Board of Trustees, the Village of Riverwoods is called to order. Will you stand with me and we'll say the pledge? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
trustee Dickon is absent tonight. Trustee Eastman,
Here.
trustee Hollander,
Here.
trustee Jamerson is also absent tonight. Trustee Smith,
Here.
President Ford,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business is the approval of minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting for May 16th. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, same sign. And the next is the Board of Trustees special meeting of May 25th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? I would certainly draw your attention to these minutes because I think they really closely, very closely reflect exactly what happened at that meeting, and they're a good record of that discussion. So again, I'm using them as a very good record. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Next order of business is Treasurer and Finance Report, approval of bills. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, sorry. Are there any questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Smith,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
motion passes.
Trustee Clayton, do you have any comments for us this
I'll
evening?
save it for the committee reports.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next order of business is the Director of Community Services report. He's not with us tonight. Consultants report. Attorney, please.
Everything's on the agenda.
Thank you. Village Engineer, please.
Good evening. One thing to talk about that's not further down the agenda is a week and a half ago, I had a meeting with Lake County Department of Transportation about potential road improvements on Duffy and Riverwoods Road. They're very preliminary, nothing set in stone, but just conceptually, they are looking to redo the Riverwoods Road path. And so therefore, I know we've had discussions before going out to bid to redo Riverwoods path. But at this time, if Lake County is looking to redo that during their milling and resurfacing of Riverwoods Road, it might be beneficial for the village to hold off and save some of that money and let the county address it. What we can do during this time is use the road program this year and patch certain areas that need attention immediately. And then, like I said, then once they come through and redo Riverwoods Road, they can redo the pathway with their funds. So that's all I have for engineering that, again, is not on the agenda already. And then public works side, there was a water main break in West Course early Sunday morning. Our guys went out there, figured out what the issue was. They obviously had to issue a boiler, but everything is fixed and everyone is back to using their water. That's all I have for my report right now.
Are there any questions for our village engineer? Any comments on her suggestion with the Riverwoods Road bike path? Trustee Eastman,
I
please.
just add that I think that makes sense. I mean, I've biked on that path for a while, and I think it probably does need some sort of minor attention, but I think it does make sense to work with the county and, to eventually redo it in the proper way.
And they're looking at a tentative construction date of 25. So it's not ready. Typically start these conceptual, it's, 10 years down the road, and this is relatively quick. So
Right.
you're really looking at, season and a half that we'll just have to patch some things.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense.
So we'll do some patchwork if it's needed in the meantime. Any other questions for our village engineer at this point? Okay, our village ecologist is not with us tonight. Plan Commission, please. Chairman Brightcroft, do you have something for us?
Good evening. I'll be very brief. The Plan Commission met on June the 1st. We continued our discussion on short-term rentals, and we will continue that discussion at our next meeting on July the 6th. Hopefully, we will complete our discussion on that date. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions? I believe what we've done is send along an article that you wrote and appeared in the Village Voice about affordable housing. And the trustees got it. And I think that's an important learning piece for future discussions. I just want to draw that to everyone's attention because it was a very good article. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for our Plan Commissioner?
I wish I had
And you're
something
next.
else to say, except nothing to report. But I don't have anything else to say, so nothing to report.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the police report. Chief?
The police activity is in the packet, and then I do have a few things that I want to report to the board. During the evening hours of May 20th, we conducted alcohol and/or tobacco compliance checks using an underage agent. And one business, the Deerfield Golf Course, did sell to our underage agent, and the seller was cited by the officer. Nobody else sold tobacco or liquor. Then also at the Deerfield Golf Course on May 29th, we had an intoxicated person who was upset about something and intentionally broke the glass door to the clubhouse. So officers responded and arrested him, and he was charged with criminal damage to property. We auctioned off a 2014 Chevrolet Tahoe police vehicle at auction. The car sold for $9,010.50. So after the 3% commission to Obanoff Auction Service, we received a check for $8,740.18. I'm happy to report that Officer Alfred Masciarello has been awarded the Tactical Patrol Officer designation presented by the Illinois Tactical Officers Association. So Al successfully completed a series of critical patrol training objectives and certifications, and the designation is reserved for the very small group of officers who have taken their training to the advanced level and can perform a critical patrol skill, can perform critical patrol skill sets during active threat, high-risk patrol situations. So Al is a member of our mobile field force, and they're the ones who go out for crowd control. They were obviously very busy during George Floyd, during the protests, and Al was running all over Lake Ann, Cook County with the team, and he completed a lot of training. So I'm proud that he was able to achieve that the award. Last thing is, I just wanted to take the board's temperature on something that we've been running into. So The permissible hours for landscaping equipment are between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on weekdays, and then on Saturday between 8:30 and 5 p.m. So when we get calls about landscapers out on a Sunday when nobody's supposed to be cutting their grass, we enforce the ordinance and tell them that they can't do it on Sundays. And we just had one the other day, and we made them stop and they had to come back on Monday to finish the job. But we also occasionally run into it where some neighbor will call and say that their next door neighbor is out cutting their own grass. We historically have not been enforcing that on people who are cutting their own grass. And my reasoning is because some people, that's the only day they have to cut their grass, if they're working Monday through Saturday. So we've been allowing them basically the same hours, and it doesn't happen that often, between 8:30 a.m. and 5 p.m., which are the Saturday hours, to cut their own grass. So right now, if we follow the letter of the law, nobody's supposed to be cutting grass on Sundays. I just want to see if the board would want to consider changing the ordinance, or if maybe there's something I'm missing and the board would like me to be more strict in enforcing the ordinance. So I'm just wondering if anybody has any comments.
Comments, please? Trustee Hollander?
Well, I guess I'll start. Having thought about this for about 30 seconds, my initial impression is I would let the homeowner cut the grass anytime they want to. And if I was the neighbor of that homeowner who decided on a Sunday night at 9 o'clock that was the best time to cut the grass, I probably would try to go over there and ask him to find a better time. I dislike the idea of regulating what someone can do in their own home by themselves. It's different than hiring someone else. And I understand the consequences on the neighborhood if you're having a loud lawnmower or a blower or something of that type, that might disturb them. But I think I would rather try to handle that one-on-one than to try to legislate it. That's my initial impression.
Well, it is being legislated now during the week and on Saturday during certain hours.
The homeowner.
Anybody can cut the grass, whether it's
right. But I'm saying as a homeowner,
yeah,
I would not put any restrictions on the homeowner and leave it to some arrangements between the neighbors. That the way we have it now, I think, should be enforced against a third party, a landscaper.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
No, I actually agree. I think a homeowner that has to or chooses to cut their grass on a Sunday because maybe they work Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday and it rains on Saturday, I think that should be permissible because it's going to be, most of the yards in Riverwoods are relatively small areas to cut. You're talking about 30 minutes or something. So I think that should be more than fine. So I agree with Henry.
Trustee Clayton?
In addition, I guess it would occur to me that homeowners use chainsaws and all kinds of other things on Sundays that sometimes make a lot more noise than landscaping. So I think I agree with the other two trustees.
Eastman, were you going to say something?
No, I mean, my only point was that, but you brought up a good point about the chainsaws and those issues that can be noisy. It's just that typically when you get lawn services that come in, they have multiple people, right? And the noise is more magnified than if you just have one person with a push mower cutting their grass, right? So it's like, I think having that one day where you say, okay, this is going to be a quiet day for the most part, right? Makes sense. I think the way it is makes sense.
So I can bring back an ordinance making a few adjustments for the board to look at? Is that the consensus?
Sure.
Okay.
That'll help our officers and be, when they get the calls, what they can and can't do. It'll be helpful.
Thank you. And that's all I have.
Well, I'd like to add that Al's certificate and, this award, I think, is a very big deal. And it just speaks well of our force and our officers and the training that they get and the leadership that the chief has given them. So I think Al deserves, he's not here, but, hopefully he'll watch the tape. And I think Al deserves at least a round of applause. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Information items and comments from the president. First up is an update on the proposal received from Lexington Homes for the development of the Federal Life property. I drew everyone's attention to the minutes of the meeting of the May 25th, the meeting on May 25th, where we heard only the Lexington presentation. We heard questions from the trustees, and that was continued. So we will again meet. We had hoped to have a meeting on June 15th, a special meeting, but we weren't able to get all the players together. So that's going to be continued, and we'll take it up on the 20th unless the board has other feelings about that. If I could ask our attorney if there's anything, if any status has changed or there's been any information that we've gotten that we can share.
I think everything that is so far posted is all of the current information about the proposal. We have asked Lexington to take a look at some of the architectural choices still that they've made in terms of the color and materials. And I asked Bob Hammers, frequently acted as a consulting architect to the village, to take a look as well. So we may have some comments from Bob, and we may have some response to that before the next meeting. That's all I have.
Trustees, do you have any questions or comments on that topic right now? Okay, then we're just going to keep moving forward on that. Next item is discussion on the proposal under review by the Deerfield Plan Commission for the Baxter property. What you have in your packet, and that is public and it's been posted, is a memo from me to the board talking about the fact that we have asked the village attorney to provide an overview of the bridge proposal from the perspective if the proposal were being made to Riverwoods, which it is not. And just to give us a high-level overview on issues like traffic and air quality. What we need to remember as we go through all of this is that we are looking at the village as an entirety, all of the village. We have to seek to find out the facts and learn about what's going on. We have to be cognizant of our neighbors, and they need to be cognizant of us and how we work together. We have to think about what the short term and the longer term means here in terms of that. But what I would draw the board's attention to is that as we continue to receive information and this continues to develop, we will be asking for future requests to hire experts or to retain those that might be helpful to us for consulting. Keep in mind that we are right now contributing, if you will, attorney costs to take a look at the situation. Our attorney has written a memo, and it is attached to my memo. Again, it is in the board packet, and it has been shared in an effort to just widen the perspectives and generally just add some important facts and questions to the discussion. Much of this was done when we were looking at a proposal for the 37 acres on Milwaukee Avenue, where a much smaller but similar kind of proposal was made. And just generally, I was hoping to have our attorney just highlight a couple of the things in that memo that he has written for the public. Bruce, if you would.
Okay, I don't mind. The information that I mentioned in the memo is all publicly available. In fact, you can get to it with just a couple of searches, really. The guidance from the California Attorney General is probably very widely cited. Obviously, it had a lot of suggestions, both for minimizing environmental concerns during construction, in the initial planning and siting and deciding where's the appropriate location for a distribution center. This is all driven by the fact that probably in the last 15 years in California, there have been just millions of square feet of this kind of e-commerce logistics centers being constructed. And so they started running into problems. And when you go on one of the sites of the cities and villages in California that have experienced a lot of this growth, their plan commissions and departments have multiple submittals. And a typical submittal for some of these distribution centers includes an environmental assessment, a health risk assessment, an air quality report. So it got us thinking about what we should be doing in Riverwoods when we look at one of these kind of operations. And that was the purpose of the memo, in part was just to go through and look at the guidance that's already out there from jurisdictions that have done a lot more of this planning than we have. We didn't have available the work from the New Jersey State Planning Commission. They only adopted their guidelines last fall in September. They obviously knew about California's guidelines, and they spent a lot of time, again, highlighting the need for regional cooperation for communities that are next to each other to be talking to each other, because the problems with these facilities spill over to your neighbor. So the conclusion of the memo is just these are some obvious factors that if you look at the guidelines and then look at the proposal that's being considered for the Baxter parcel, there seem to be some deficiencies, just general deficiencies in adhering to those guidelines. But one of the issues that's probably the hardest to get a handle on has to do with the effect of particulates on human health. We know it's a problem. It's a growing problem. It's a problem from wildfires and smoke. It's a problem from exhaust. I've learned now it's a problem from tires, the way that vehicles brake and what happens when all of these vehicles break. And there are voluminous reports from various researchers trying to measure the real presence of particulates at various locations. And if you look at the report that was done over for the Baxter proposal, it uses a model. So it wasn't based on any measured effects. The building hasn't been built yet. So the only way to posit what would happen if the building were to be built is to run a bunch of assumptions through a model. The assumptions are probably flawed. I think that the team for the Thorngate Owners Association has pulled together some great experts. One of them is a traffic consultant who pointed out that depending on the use of the facility, the traffic could be, I forget if he said 4 or 6 times higher than what's in the base report that was presented initially. So if you have a lot more truck traffic, then the assumptions you plugged into the model of the effect on your air quality is a flawed model. You ran through some assumptions, but they might be the wrong assumptions. And I think on reflection, what this is really telling us is that the way that these e-commerce warehouses are built today, they have a very, very wide range of possible outcomes of traffic, and all of the air quality and other health and safety issues that go along with it. So when we approve a special use, if you look at what the village is looking at right now with Lexington, we have a site plan, architectural renderings. We have how many units, we have a projection of the population. It's not as if the number of people that would live in that community could be 5 times greater than what we know. They could vary from a projection, but the village board is not expecting that proposal would be 5 times more dense, 5 times more populated, have 5 times the impact than anything that you've been shown before. The difference with an e-commerce warehouse is that depending on the type of user, the range of impacts can actually be as high as 5 times what you've initially thought. At least that's what we're initially learning. So to use a broad-based special use to approve a warehouse or a particular site plan even, but not know what the ultimate impact and intensity will be, it seems to be the real difficulty with just granting a blanket zoning approval. And I think were this to come before the village, we would have to look at that carefully. I just don't think the board would be comfortable. I don't think this board would be comfortable approving a type of use where the impacts could vary a range of 5 times a base case. So that's the purpose of the memo, is just to sort of look at these issues from a 30,000 foot level, how other jurisdictions that have had a lot of experience trying to understand their impact, what are their guidelines, what are their best management practices. And as you see, they're they run the gamut from requiring electric vehicles. How quick will that phase in be? Having monitoring around the facility, air quality monitoring stations, et cetera. We will have available, we don't yet, but we will have available because they've offered to share it, the traffic consultants report that the Thorngate Association has gotten from its consultant, as well as the report of their land use consultant, and both of which are, I think, very excellent reports, and I would commend them to the board. So they'll be available. I think we'll probably find a way to get them posted on the village website, so other people can read them.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Trustee Eastman, please.
Bruce, do you have a sense, so, looking at this California and New Jersey guidance, do we have any sense as to what the state of Illinois' impression is on this? I mean, you see a lot more, not just the Baxter property, but you see lots of news articles about, warehouses in the western suburbs, I mean, it seems to be a hot topic of discussion. Do we have any idea if there's anything been introduced or moving in Springfield that might apply to this, or do they just look to California for guidance?
I haven't seen a lot at the state level. I was looking at the Illinois Pollution Control Board. I was trying to figure out what kind of air quality tests or standards they might apply to a facility like this. The city of Chicago found it necessary to adopt an air quality testing for distribution centers just in the last year. As often happens, and it's a shame, is you see that an issue like this, every community for a while finds that it's on its own. There's not a regional group that's looking at this particular issue that I found. Lake County is probably catching up. I think these other jurisdictions, they were the ones where these e-commerce facilities first came, and they were adapting more quickly. So I think Illinois is catching up.
Thanks.
Trustee Clayton, please.
I'd just like to ask a general question about the project. People have asked me and I don't know the answer. What's the motivation for the developer to want to be annexed into Deerfield, given the level of services and so on that are already on the site? And if Deerfield should turn them down in terms of the annexation, can the county just grant the zoning change?
The developer itself has said that it thought that it would just be the most efficient path to getting approved. Part of the site in the county is zoned industrial and part is not. So in the county, the property would have to be rezoned also. Anytime you have a rezoning of a property in the county, there's a possibility of a community triggering a higher voting threshold by the county board. Now, in this case, the community that would seem to have that right is Deerfield. And I won't go into all the reasons for why that is, but what the developer may have thought is, I may as well try to get approved by Deerfield, because if I don't and Deerfield doesn't want me, they may object anyway, and I might have a hard time getting approved in the county. So that's just as
Bruce, there's in one of the documents submitted to Deerfield Plan Commission as a follow-up questions. I think it's the first one on their list. And one of the questions is specifically that, as to why are you coming into Deerfield rather than going into the county? Bridge answers the question, which you can read yourself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all the reasons behind it, but they did give a public answer to that.
Bruce,
Trustee Smith, yeah.
sorry, Bruce, a quick question. One of the things you identified was compatibility, working with the adjoining municipalities and things like that. My understanding is Deerfield, that's been limited to date. At least that's my understanding. Is that a requirement, or is that just kind of best practice? Is that something we can force?
No, we can't force it. No, it's just in the guidelines itself that New Jersey came up with. You really should think about this. These are really hard to manage, without thinking about it. Ideally, communities would do this more often. And often they think about their own little world and they don't do this. This would have been an ideal case to sit down ahead of time because it looks as if the adverse effects disproportionately affect us and not Deerfield.
Are there any other questions for our attorney at this point? I really think reading his memo, it just was an excellent statement. And the final page is really, I think, very well stated with some really very interesting points. I know we've shared the memo with our Thorngate residents already, but again, anybody who wishes to read it, it's very well done, and brings up some excellent points that we hope people pay attention to. Moving on to new business. Approval of a proposal from Gaywalt Hamilton Associates for the repair and replacement of the sewer lining. How exciting.
This was part of an MPI, so Municipal Partnership Initiative. So what an MPI is, there's a bunch of municipalities around this area. We all jump onto one bid. So sewer line is one that we do every year. And so this came in, it was actually under budget at 127, I believe. In our capital improvement budget, we have about 350. So this really helps allow us to allocate other funds to other things within the village. Hare is the contractor. They do this all over the place. So we're recommending awarding their contract using the MPI contract for sewer lining.
Are there any questions from the trustees? Do I hear a motion for approval?
Summer.
A second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Smith,
Aye.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Motion passes.
How did that happen? Thank you. Okay, the next item of business is the Saunders Road Water Main Project, bid results and recommendations. Again,
So I mentioned this at the last board meeting that we just got it in and we wanted to cycle through the numbers and get you guys a little bit more clear report of what came in for the bid. So a quick summary. We jumped on with Lake County Public Works. They're doing a force main replacement along Saunders. So we thought if we jumped in with them, doing directionally drilling, very similar applications, we would get, a good price from the contractor. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We projected the cost to be at 1.6. It came in at 2.34 million. And it's not just ours. This isn't specific. The sanitary side of it, they were about 3 million. They came in over 5. So right now it's just the contractor's availability to do the work. There's a lot of work going on. We're looking to try to see if it was the pipe, if it was something specific that maybe we could take out or do at a later date to try to reduce the cost. And it really was just across the board. Everything was an absorbent cost. The pipe was actually right where we estimated the cost. It was just everything else was higher. So with that, the memo just basically states that we recommend not moving forward with the contract since it's well above the projected cost that we initially had in fear of our budget going well above. And then from there, what we did take a look at is potentially moving to a phased approach to repair the water main on Saunders. And so then what we looked at was the number of water main breaks on Saunders and the location of where they're kind of clustered. And so they're kind of in the mid third of our overall proposed plan. And so what we're proposing is to go out to bid just for that small section separately, not pairing with county or anyone else, and push the construction to like an early winter. Usually you get better pricing because a lot of the contractors haven't started their large projects yet, because those are usually late spring, summer construction. And also to remind you, the purpose of this replacement was because we know it's asbestos pipe. And we're just waiting for the mandate to come down with the EPA, just like they did with the lead. They're going to soon come through with asbestos. So we are trying to just be ahead of the 8 ball, starting to remove pipe that we are known to be asbestos. So realistically, if we go out to bid and the prices are still high, we can still sit with how we currently are functioning. The water main is functioning fine. It was just getting ahead of that curveball and replacing it. And now looking at more of a phase and concentrating on the one section that's had, I believe, 3 breaks in the last 12 years. That will at least give some support to replace that section. And then maybe down the road, look into replacing the other phases as need be.
Are there any questions for our village engineer? So you recommend going with a phased approach?
Excuse me,
and
Chris,
phased-
can I ask,
Sorry,
I'm sorry,
Trustee
can I ask
Smith,
one?
go ahead.
So is the phased approach, will that ultimately cost more or less as we think about long-term costs or the entire project? Or do you have any projection of that?
It should cost less, but the current contract that we came in, so give you a realm, and that's in the exhibit in the packet, is if we took the current contract price and we figured out those, and those items within that phase 1, we'd be a little over 900,000 in price alone. Whereas if we use pricing that should be in the norm, we're at 750. So typically, I would say, yes, I agree with you. When you phase it, all you're really doing is just prolonging your payments. But since this contract was well over and the pricing is very escalated to what we've seen in current, I would think that we would probably be well under.
Okay, thank you.
So the motion that we would need would be to approve a phased approach with a rebid later this year with construction early 2024. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Next on the list is approval of a contract for public works services by Pinestone. As I think some of you know, we do have a need for a new provider of some public works services, and that includes maintenance, small maintenance jobs around Village Hall and snow removal and so things of that sort. We have looked at Pinestone. The contract that you have in the packet has the proper insurance and liability, and the pricing is in there as well. Trustee Hollander, do you have a comment?
A lot of these services, were they provided by SE in the
SE
past, right?
Industries, yes.
And this, okay, so they're taking over what we used to use SC for because we didn't have anyone else at the time. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay.
That is true.
How do the prices compare to the prior contract?
They are definitely competitive, and you'll see in the cleaning services, they are far lower.
So one of the things we have 2 contracts here tonight because we found 2 different vendors, one to do the public works services, the other to do the cleaning services.
Correct.
Before we had combined them.
Before they were combined. Yes. Thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the Pinestone contract? Is
So moved.
there a second, please? Is
Second.
there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Smith,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Hollander.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And next is the approval of contract for janitorial or cleaning services by Raccoon Cleaning Services. Are there any questions? I know, I love it. Are there any questions or comments? Do I hear a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any comments, any questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And the last item of new business is an approval of an ordinance amending the village code concerning soliciting. Would Would our village attorney like to lead us through that, please?
I'll try to do this briefly. Thanks to our chief who vigilantly follows reported cases and advice about updating our ordinances, our definition of commercial soliciting would have prevented someone from going door to door to try and get someone to subscribe to a magazine. But it turns out that that activity has some First Amendment implications, and that we're told we can't really prevent someone from doing that and requiring them to get a license. So the definition of commercial soliciting is similar to what we had before, but now it does not prohibit the sale of books, magazines, and subscriptions. That's really the only change.
Questions, Trustee Hollander?
Are they required to at least check in with the village to say they're going out door to door? Not that they need a license, but to alert us that there's someone that.
They're not, but we encourage them to.
Is that an abridgment of the First Amendment rights as well?
Well, that probably would be.
That's how it's been with people who are doing for political purposes or for charitable purposes. They've never had to register with us. We encourage them to, but they don't always do it. And we can't, there's nothing we can cite them for.
Okay, thank you.
So we would be looking for a waiver of first reading and then a second reading and adoption.
Motion for
move to
first read,
waive first reading.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Is there a motion for second reading and approval?
I'll move for second reading and adoption.
Adoption. Sorry, thank you. Begins with an A. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Ordinance 230608 passes.
And old business. Discussion of construction of a pathway to the demonstration center. This has recently come up, and we had talked about back in, well, last year, talked about bidding out that work for the path. Gaywalt gave us a bid of about $27,000, and I'm pretty sure that's not true anymore. But is there a feeling on the behalf of the board that, or by the board rather, that they would like to take a look at this again? Trustee Clayton?
Yes, I would like to have it looked at again.
Okay.
The previous trustee, Mike Haber, and I had been working on an idea as to how to attract more people into the woodland preservation demonstration area.
Mhm.
And one of the ideas that we came up with was to something that had a minimal impact on the demonstration area itself, was to put an exercise trail with exercise equipment spaced out along the trail that doesn't take up a lot of room off the trail and draws people into the demonstration area. And we need a pathway in order to make that happen. So it had been my intent to introduce that concept to the board once the play area was complete, because that same group does the kinds of things that I'm talking about, and I could get together a proposal. So I'd love to have another bid on the pathway, one way or another.
Okay.
Yeah.
With or without the
Right.
equipment. Okay.
One way or another.
The feeling of the board? We can ask Gaywalt to update map it out and
I'd
update
support
and
that
bring
as
it
well.
back. Okay. Thank you. Okay, there being no other old business, visitors wishing to address the board. Good evening. I'm going to ask you to abide by the same rules that we did at the May 25th meeting and have been, and that would be 3 minutes per person. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Les Raff, 645 Thorngate. First of all, clarification on the soliciting. ordinance. Are private communities such as Thorngate included in that, or can they exclude solicitors such as newspaper, magazine subscribers?
I would let you talk to your own association attorney about that. All individuals can put signs in their windows saying no solicitors are allowed. Your streets are private streets, so you may be able to do something differently than what we can do as a village.
Thank you. Second point or second question, Bruce, thank you for that very excellent report on the warehousing situation. And I'd like to thank the trustees and Trustee Hollander for meeting on a regular basis with members of our board to discuss the situation. We appreciate that. A question that members of our community do have at this time is, are there concrete steps that the Board of Trustees can take in support of Thorngate and the opposition to the Baxter Bridge project? And by concrete support, up to and including any financial support. Thank you.
Mayor, can I just add one thing about the soliciting?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Chief.
Just so it's clear, everybody has to abide by a sign that you put up on your residence. So if including political solicitors and charitable ones, if you have a sign on your door that says, that's visible, that says no soliciting, they're not supposed to knock on your door. Also, there are free cards about so big that you can stick to either the inside or the outside of your window or door. We have two kinds. You can pick those up at the police department or at the village hall.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board this evening?
My name is Yusuf Yamtu, and I reside at 2384 Glen Eagles Lane. I'm one of the charter member of Thorngate area. I've been there since it was built. First of all, I'd like to thank the board both for financially supporting our cause, and also the letters that you wrote for our support. I have one question and maybe two questions. One, the report that you just shared with the board, which is very comprehensive and very beneficial to our cause, have that been shared with the Deerfield Board and Board of Commissioners so they know the other side of the story?
We put it in the board packet on Friday. The board's had an opportunity to review it. So I usually want to wait till the board has had a chance to talk about it and give further instruction. But we also provided it to members of the Thorngate board. And I told them they're free to post it and share it liberally. So I'm assuming it's already been distributed widely. But if the board wants me to, we can definitely,
I think
provide it to.
is a lot more than if just anybody sends something to them.
Are you asking if we're sharing it with Deerfield? Is that what
With
you're asking?
Deerfield Board and Deerfield Zoning Commission.
I think the board will make,
I
Go
would
ahead.
prefer it coming from Thorngate.
Yeah.
And it's being done in a coordinated fashion. Thorngate is providing a lot of different materials this Thursday, and I'm sure that's part of it. I don't feel that strongly about it, but I think we're trying to have them sort of be the point of the spear on this for the moment. That might change.
That's the board decision. Just
my
suggestion.
preference.
yes.
The other one is more symbolic and means a lot if you could do it. I know that there is a relationship with the Deerfield Board. We don't want to interfere in their work. We don't want them to interfere with our work. But when some of their work is harmful to our work, we need to speak it out. And I'd like to ask either the mayor on behalf of the board or our board member go to the meeting whenever the public time comes, express the opposition and ask them very respectfully to deny the petition. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address?
Hi, my name is Bonnie Marcus.
Sorry. There we go. Sorry.
Happens to all of us.
You haven't started. You're fine. Go ahead.
So my name is Bonnie Marcus. I live at 437 Thorngate Lane. And I would also like to say that I appreciate, Bruce, the research and the efforts that you've made to understand this proposal and how it relates to other similar proposals in other parts of the country. And I also respect that the board would like to sort of maintain the relationship they have with the Deerfield Village by having Thorngate spearhead the response, I guess. However, you obviously prepared your research based on how you would respond if this was being presented to Riverwoods. How would you respond to something that is being presented in your neighborhood that is a clear and present danger? So I respect the fact that you would like Thorngate to spearhead. I respect the position you're in, but we're in a situation here that is potentially detrimental to the entire village, every neighboring community, and it could pose an immediate danger to all of us. And the danger is to the health and welfare of everyone who lives here. Every part of their day, every direction they drive, every street the kids walk down. If you look at what's going on down Sanders Road with the Allstate development and the other areas around us that are getting these terminals, most of them in California and some of these other parts in Kenosha, they're in a much different area. They're not as dense. You don't have community after community living on top of each other. You don't have an underpass in downtown Deerfield that will never be the same. That bridge will never stay standing. We have a 2-lane street that everyone uses to get back and forth no matter what side of Riverwoods you live on. This development will be at the entrance to the village of Riverwoods, not just across the street from Thorngate. I don't think you see the clear and present danger that this development is going to pose to us. It is a zoning situation, as you all know, that is very possible that, and we have Freedom of Information Act documents that are showing that there's been some conversations under the table with the Village Plan Commission where they've made deals with the bridge already. We need the support of this board, and we need it strongly. And you may never be in a position where you have to evaluate anything that is much of a clear and present danger as this development could be. And I think the fact that you're taking your time to evaluate.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
I really hope you will pay attention.
The phone keeps going.
Barbara Rath, Thorngate resident and president of the Homeowners Association. I'm just going to follow up on what Bonnie said. I implore each trustee to please look at the Deerfield Plan Commission information that is posted and see what the plan is that they are proposing. If you haven't already read it, you need to. And we need to act on this. Thorngate cannot be just spearheading this. We do need a voice from the village. This is, Bruce, you cited the New Jersey legislation that they enacted in 2022, and they enacted it for a reason. One of the things that they said in that legislation was these do not have any place across the street from a residential development near a daycare center or a house of worship. What are the three things that we have going across the street from this proposed development? 305 Riverwoods homes, a daycare center, and a house of worship. This just cannot be allowed to happen, and we need your strong voices and your strong support. And so when my husband asked what the next steps were, I expect, please, respectfully, to see what your next steps are. And this is timely. I know that it's at the Planning Commission right now, but before we know it, it's going to be in front of the Deerfield or Village Board to determine the answer to this. And then if it's accepted, it's too late. So please help us now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board this evening?
I had one question come in from resident Lisa Rosen. She would like to know if the Riverwoods Board will make a statement to the Village of Deerfield saying that we do not support the Baxter Development Plan.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. Board wish to comment at this point? All right. Yes, Trustee Clayton, please.
I guess I'm taking the comments that have been made here in the last few minutes to heart. And I think it's something that we need to revisit on a, am I done?
Your time's up, Mike. Your time's up.
I could be done. I think it's something we need to revisit actively at this point.
Yes, Trustee Hollander.
I was going to give this in my report since this appears to be a better time for it.
Okay.
There's going to be an article coming out from the mayor. There was Chicago Magazine requested responses to written questions as to how we felt about the Deerfield Plan Commission and the proposed project. It says clearly, publicly, that we're against this. Gives our reasons why. It hasn't been out yet, so I think that's part of my response to Trustee Clayton and to some of you, that it seems like we're sitting on our hands and not doing anything, but we meet every Friday. Barbara Raff and I do, and last Friday we met as a committee, about 8 or 9 people. This is not in action, but it may not be at the same speed, and we may not be always doing what the other one wants in the way we want it. But I do want to assure Riverwoods residents, and certainly Thorngate, that this is not something minor. There's a timing issue. First of all, the Plan Commission at Deerfield is the same as it is here. It's a recommendation-only body. They have no power to approve this. My guess is that if they're like we are, that most things that the Plan Commission feel are appropriate do get passed. I don't want to say that that's not the case, but it's their Board of Trustees that makes the decision. We are independently looking at other environmental issues, mainly around the number of trucks, where they idle, and the effects on the community, which is slightly different than what Thorngate is looking at. They're looking at a lot more issues. But I don't want to leave the impression that we're not doing anything. We just may not be doing it as publicly and as quickly as you may want. That's about the extent to which I can say what's happening. The other thing is that we are somewhat constrained as a board I personally am uncomfortable with it, and I've expressed that to both our attorney and the mayor. We don't have a sense of the board. I think we all feel similarly, but that's a guess, because we can't all get together as a group and talk about this except in a very public forum, which we have not done yet because of the Public Meetings Act. And so each trustee may have their own view on this, and I'm not so certain that we all have a clear idea of what each other's views are, but we're getting there. And my impression is that we're going to be on the same page fairly soon as this thing matures. I do want to note that this Thursday, 2 days from now, that there's going to be a meeting at the high school, the Deerfield Plan Commission. They had quite a turnout. I encourage you to go. It will be an opportunity for Thorngate and all of its consultants to present their case, which is quite extensive, and I found it very readable and understandable. And I think they make some great points. I think we'll have a clear understanding after that as to how the Deerfield Plan Commission responds and what they're looking for. I don't know that I can say any more, but I just don't want to leave the impression that we're not doing anything and that we don't consider it high priority.
Trustee Eastman, please.
Could I add one more thing to this? And this would be addressed to either, Barb or Les. If there is one thing immediately that the village can provide in terms of support, I mean, you may not have an answer tonight, but, convey that to either Chris or Bruce. What is it that we could provide? What is it that you truly need immediate assistance with? And how can we target that?
We need financial support.
Could you step up to the microphone, please, for the recording and the streamers at home? Thank you.
Thank you for asking the question.
For sure.
We need financial support. The monies that we have collected were done through a special assessment to each homeowner, and it was substantial, but it will not be enough to probably get us through the entire legal process. And it certainly will not cover if we need to go to litigation on this. So we have talked about various, when I have met with Henry and with Bruce, we have talked about how the village might be able to help. And one of the things that I would suggest would be in the hiring or in the purchase of reports from the consultants. That was actually a suggestion from one of our residents who said that this is typically done, and they're valuable. We have hired the consultants, we are paying for the consultants, but the reports that they generate have some value. So that might be one of the things that the board may want to consider, would be to purchase the reports from us versus actually hiring or giving funds to the hiring and the hiring of consultants. The attorney is representing Thorngate, so his fees, I feel, should be supported by Thorngate, since he is solely representing Thorngate. But the findings from the consultants, traffic, valuation, zoning, noise, environment, are things that will affect Riverwoods. And so these are things that I think you can help us with.
Makes sense.
How much are you asking for?
How much am I asking for?
You said financial support. How much are you asking for?
Well, each zoning expert is about $25,000. We have 5 of them. So that's where we're at. And, the fees are mounting. The legal fees don't stop. The attorney fees don't stop. But the consultants are more finite. And I don't know, I haven't been asked by our attorney at this point for additional consultants. I don't know if that will be coming, forthcoming. So that's where we are with the consultants. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Well, if I may.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry, the visitor's wishing to address the board. I don't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
I'll pause.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Svetlana Berger, and I live in Thorngate. I came to this country as a refugee and learned the language and saved every penny. And finally, we were able to buy a house in Sanctuary Oasis, Thorngate, and Riverwoods. Even though my geographical location is in Thorngate, my the environment that we live in is the whole area. It is Deerfield, where we pay our taxes, where the kids went to school, graduated from Deerfield High School, and now both became medical doctors and giving back to the community by treating low-income patients. This is all in the area. This is all Deerfield. This is not just Thorngate or Riverwoods. And I myself have asthma, and I feel like I'm being squeezed out of my home because of the fundamental right, human right of being sleep and breathe clean air. My house is very near the road, and it's just not about me. It's about human right of being able to sleep and breathe clean air. And I just pleading with my Riverwoods board to please do whatever you in your power to convey the message of our people. Some people may not understand the consequences, the catastrophic consequences of this development. Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you who may not know me, I'm Sherry Gladiator. I live at 880 Hoffman Lane, which is not in Thorngate. Stayed on this board for many years and kind of had a reputation of being the screw to the board. But this is an issue, and we've heard from Thorngate residents, and that's pretty much who we're hearing from. This is an issue that affects every resident of this village. I know there are the projects we've done in the village where there have been complaints that tax dollars from my community are going to support another community, or I paid for water and now somebody else wants to pay for water. These are issues we've dealt with over the years. This issue affects every resident of the village. It affects the quality of life. It affects noise issues. It affects pollution issues. And if the board determines that they need to provide financial support to fight this, you can have my tax dollars, because man, this is for every single resident of this village.
Thank you. Money.
As I spoke, I hope you didn't get the impression we said you are not doing anything, you're sitting on your whatever, and relaxing. All I answer personally, I know you do a lot, and much more. You want to be active. I do not agree that it's not part of your job to tell the other board where they stand. I disagree with the position, sir. Thank you.
I had one additional question come in from Carone Blitz. What concrete steps is the 30,000 being taken by the PR agency now? It's our tax dollars, so we want results. First would be a website to educate us and disseminate facts to oppose the Baxter plan.
I just wanted to comment a little bit about the nature of the reports. I've read them. I think some of them are really excellent. One of the things that I've talked about with the counsel for Thorngate is the difficulty of getting the right experts. I think he beat us to the punch. And now that we have the reports and we've seen them, I think the idea that Barbara was expressing may have some relevance, because I think they would be useful reports. I think we have more information now than we would have had 3 weeks ago, certainly, about some of the problems with this proposal. I've also, conveyed to David that I thought part of what we were doing is a bit of a tag team. I think, it's a question of tactics, really, and it's not. He's going to make as good a presentation against this proposal as he possibly can. He's lining up expert witnesses. We didn't want to. I didn't want to run interference. We didn't want to get in each other's way. I didn't want to create conflicting narratives of what was going on. So I think part of the village strategy has been to leverage what happens with these expert witnesses and what the presentation of the Plan Commission for what we might do next. So I don't view this as, I think that all of these reports are going to be helpful in some sense. And I'm very curious to see what the Deerfield Plan Commission does. I think the traffic report was astonishing. I thought the land use experts report was extremely valuable. Just read it before I came here tonight. So, that's all I can tell you is I think at some point we'll figure out how to maximize use of this. In terms of financial support, I don't see, I did see a problem with funneling money to individual homeowner associations, but I think in this instance, the board might want to take a look at these reports and decide whether in some way we could consider acquiring them. And I could, go through each one and tell you what I thought of them and what use they might be ultimately to the village.
I think it is a question that the board should consider. I think everything that we have written, we've talked about the village as a whole. What I said earlier today is in a memo that's been posted, and, we make decisions that are best for the entire village. And as Ms. Gratiter pointed out, we are one village. So I think that the board will want to consider the idea of purchase. We'll want to take a closer look at that. Keep in mind, we're a public body. What we purchase becomes public. So it's a question of not being a spoiler, if you would. So we don't have the whole board here, and I think the whole board needs to weigh in on this. So taken under consideration, I think that's a pretty interesting idea about purchase. So I know we've had some concerns in the past about sharing and who controls the consultant and who does the consultant report to. So again, if any one of the trustees want to chime in on that, yeah, we can certainly find a way to do something here. Go ahead, Trustee Hollander, please.
Andy, go.
No, I was just going to say,
Trustee Eastman,
I
I'm sorry.
completely
Go ahead.
agree with that. Yeah.
I think that the board has certainly made it clear that we're in favor of giving a financial participation and support. We want to try to do it the right way. And when we looked at it initially, just subsidizing Thorngate's consultants and what they were doing wasn't possible. And we're trying to find other ways of doing it, such as hiring our own consultants in a particular area that would then be a benefit to both of us. But I think waiting a few days until we see how the Plan Commission responds will give us a better way of knowing what direction we should be going. So the fact that we haven't said we're going to give $50,000 or do this or that doesn't mean that that commitment isn't there. Almost everyone on the board has made that commitment, but give us a little time to know what the best way to have that happen.
Anybody else care to comment at this point? Is there anybody else that wishes to address the board? Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. I think trustee Hollander's already given his report, right? So why don't we start with finance and economic development? Trustee Clayton, please.
The first quarter results were rejuvenating and getting re-going again with regard to the transparency of our financials and so on after all the changes that have been going on within the staff. We should have the first quarter posted on the website tomorrow or the day after. The audit is still on track to be done and to present it to the board on June 20th. However, we don't have a draft of it yet and we haven't seen the management letter, so it's getting a little concerning. And Bill has promised to follow up with Ed to make sure that we're going to have the management letter at least in time to be able to have it before the presentation on the 20th. We've completed some preliminary water fund projections given the price increase from Northbrook and the projects that have been outlined by Gewalt. And we've done some projections on those that we're going to be scheduling a meeting to come up with a recommendation to the board on a rate change for water. The recruiting for the finance director is going on track, and we should be on track to have someone on board by August. We're working in the BS&A area to improve the reporting that we're getting out of the thing, and that's something that out of the system, and it's something we should be able to do. We're looking at how to repay the TIF loan, the loan that the general fund made to the TIF. And finally, we're having some issues with the county depositing some SSA money supposedly at our bank, but the bank not having it. So Moses, we're looking back. We have a June 10th and a June 29th payments that somehow are lost in the system. So we're following up with that. And we're trying to figure out how to clean up bank accounts at this particular point. For example, we have booked correctly the MFT expenses and so on, but the MFT expenses haven't come out of the MFT bank account. They've come out of the general account. So we have to figure out what's going wrong and fix that. That's my report.
I'm not sure I can say thank you. Are there any questions for trustee Clayton? Okay, communications, trustee Dickon isn't with us this evening. Woodlands Ecology and Legal, trustee Eastman, please.
I don't have anything specific to report other than that I've been spending a fair amount of time liaising with both the Meadow Lake residents and the Thorngate residents on the PR side, and particularly look forward to working more with the Thorngate residents on those issues.
Thank you. Any questions for trustee Eastman at this point? Okay, land use and roads. Henry, do you have anything at all to add?
Unfortunately,
Oh,
we met with Walters Kluwer. I think it's the first time, at least, that I've met with them in about a year. I was very impressed with the owners who are, I would say I have a high degree of sensitivity to the environment, both as a company and their intent to try to make certain that whomever takes over that property has a similar sensitivity to the environment as well. I was impressed with their strong feelings on that. Be that as it may, they may have no control over once the new owner's there. It was also my impression this is going to end up being some form of residential rather than commercial or retail. We have no follow-up meeting. I also got the impression that this is going to gather steam this year, although maybe not in the next couple of months, thankfully. The 37 acres that is partially in our village and partially not. Other people are taking a look at that again, and we're getting some queries, but there's nothing definite to add on that. I have two other issues. One is I was at the Plan Commission last Thursday as the only audience member, which was nothing unusual, but I couldn't hear anything. I could not understand what was being said from this side of the room. I don't know if this audience can hear me or hear all of us clearly, but it was almost impossible because of the echoes and the sound in this room. And I know I'm on the bandwagon about that and bring it up every month, but
Yeah,
it really bothered me in that I could not participate or listen.
we've gotten bids on that,
Okay.
and $25,000 is the starting point to dampen the sound and all that. So we can we can go through that again for sure.
And the last point is really because Rick Jamerson isn't here, so he's not going to give a report. But I don't know if anybody noticed it, but there are about 10 times as many roof permits being taken out this last 6 weeks than we've ever had in Riverwoods. I don't know if you looked at the report. My roof was totally replaced. We had a hailstorm about 6 weeks ago. I had no damage, no leaks that I knew of, nor did two of my neighbors. However, when they went up there, they found everybody's roof was damaged and they're all being replaced. I mention it because even though you don't have any apparent damage or leaks, I would take advantage of all of these folks who are trying to get money out of you to look at your roof, have someone take a look at it, because we were hit hard and a lot of the damage is hidden. And it's an opportunity to at least know where you stand on that.
Are there any questions for Trustee Hollander? Thank you. Building, oops, I'm sorry, Trustee Jamerson isn't with us this evening. Community Services, Trustee Smith, brand new.
Brand new, no report.
Thank you. Thank you. There's no need to go into executive session this evening. The next time and date for our next meeting is now June 20th at 6:30, not 7:30, but 6:30. As I mentioned earlier, there was a June 15th special meeting scheduled to continue the Lexington hearing, but all the parties weren't available on that date. So the June 20th meeting may be a long one. So unless I hear a different, may I have a motion for adjourn?
Before we adjourn, I'd just like to wish a very happy birthday to our village engineer who is celebrating tonight. So.
I know there should be a cake, right? There's no cake.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
I'm down.
Yeah. I need to figure out to hit the cancel button.
Thank you.